Hey fragrance fans, welcome to another video. This is John from Proverbs 27:9 Fragrances. And today we're going to be doing a tag video that we were tagged in from Tyler over at Simply Fragrances. Tyler's got an awesome channel. He's a really cool dude, a fellow Christian, and I really like his channel. Encourage you to go check him out. So he tagged me in this video on 10 fragrances that I wore back in my day. So, kind of a back in my day, this is what I was wearing kind of thing. And I'm going to do mine a little bit differently. And then we'll tag some people here at the end as well. So I'm going to try to put mine in chronological order of when I started wearing them and about how old I was. And so these are my best guesses and my recollection. And I think I'm going to have some, there's going to be a few crossover fragrances that everybody wore kind of back in the day, unless you're real young, if you're real young, maybe your fragrances are like things from the late 90s. But I grew up, I was born in 1980, I'm 42 years old, so I grew up in the 80s and 90s. I'm not going to include a couple of, well-known ones like Old Spice and Brut that kind of everybody wore. But there will be a couple on here that probably most people will have, but I think I've got some that nobody will have, and maybe some you've never even heard of. So I'm going to start out with an old fragrance from 1967, and it is Avon's Wild Country. And Avon's Wild Country was an aromatic fougere fragrance. You can still buy it, but they would put them out in these awesome different crazy bottles. Avon used to be really known for their wild bottles, and this is my favorite bottle. If you can see there, Wild Country. I have no idea. I know I've known of this bottle being in my family, my house, my entire life. This is not the one that I wore. This was one that my grandpa or my dad probably wore, and my grandma would set them around for decorations. We had this guitar. We had the one that I wore was a little baseball. We had different ones that looked like cars. We had one that looked like I think it was like the Capitol building. They just had all these wild bottles, and they're really cool. And I actually collect. I don't have many here. I've just got the guitar here. But I'm starting to collect these a little bit. But here's an aromatic fougere. I think it may have inspired Azzaro. It's got that anise note in it with, lavender and amber and tonka. It was powdery, best I can remember. Just kind of a classic old fougere style fragrance. So I wore that when I was around 4 or 5 years old. Now, again, if you know anything about me and my story, my dad was a door-to-door perfume salesman, so I've been wearing colognes my entire life. All right, number 9, and again, these are not ranked in how much I like them, but in when I wore them. So this would have been age 6 to 7 when I started wearing this, and it was Chaps from Ralph Lauren. Okay, Chaps. I did a video on this. I don't know if it's out yet. I schedule things, and so sometimes I'll record something and put it right out. Sometimes I schedule it out for months. But Chaps was a 79 release. It was a woody chypre. I got it because I popped my dad's atomizer off, and he couldn't get it back on there to work, so he just gave it to me, and I would just kind of, squirt it out best I could. But yeah, I wore that when I was like as young as 6 and 7 years old. Can you imagine a 6-year-old showing up for school smelling like Chaps? All right, number 8. This is one I just remembered just the other day. This fragrance has not been in my brain since I quit wearing it probably. But once it popped into my mind, I was so excited to have remembered it. It was a 1988 release from the house of Old Spice, and it's Santa Fe. And I started wearing this when I was 8 years old because I got it for Christmas the year that it was released in 1988. And let me see, I want to spray it, kind of remember. Yeah, it's just a great sandalwood fragrance. You know, this fragrance still smells good today. There's nothing that smells too dated at all with it. In fact, I could put that on and go to, go to church, or I could probably wear that to the office. It's got a classic style scent. It's mainly sandalwood and patchouli and spices and cinnamon. It's just kind of a spicy sandalwood fragrance. But I was so glad to have remembered that fragrance. All right, let's see. Number 7, started wearing this 8, 9 years old. It's the one of the ones that everybody's going to have. You know, your dad's favorite fragrance in the 80s and early 90s. This was like an 82 release, I think, from Guy Laroche. Classic aromatic fougere, barbershop style, clean, lavender, shaved foam. Nice classic dry down with seems like maybe oat moss and I don't have to talk about Drakkar Noir. Y'all know that one. I was wearing that. You know, even though it came out in 82, I think my dad got a bottle around 88 or 89. So I'm 8 or 9 years old wearing Drakkar Noir. But number 6, I started wearing this when I was probably about 10 years old. And it's because Dad didn't want me wearing his Drakkar Noir. He got Preferred Stock, which is another Coty fragrance, which is owned, either Stetson owns Coty or Coty owns Stetson. Probably Coty owns Stetson because Coty is one of the oldest. I think they may be the oldest American fragrance house. Again, Coty still smells good today. It smells a lot like Drakkar Noir. It's got a little bit of an animalic touch to it. I think there's some leather in there. It's a little woody, a little spicy, even though it's an amber fougere. But that's a cool one. I was wearing that when I was 10 years old, 1990. Again, got it for Christmas the year it came out. You know, they would put these fragrances like this and this out where you got a cologne spray and an aftershave and a gift pack. You know, they still do that on some fragrances. Number 5, y'all all know this one as well, especially if you was a 90s kid, from the house of Davidoff, Cool Water. Come out in 1988. I probably didn't start wearing it till I was about 12 or 13, so probably 92, 93. I can remember going to church with my best friend. We would a lot of times we'd go to the movies on Sunday afternoon after church, and we would go to the mall, and we would go to the counter at Dillard's, and we would douse ourselves in Cool Water, and then we'd go to the movies and just choke everybody out, because when this stuff come out at the beginning, it was beast mode. Not so much now, but we was choking everybody out. Number 4, I know I started wearing this when I was around 14, is when I started driving, and I went and actually bought myself a bottle, probably the first fragrance I ever bought myself. And it is another Coty fragrance from the house, Aspen. And Aspen came out in 89. Aspen is basically a clone of Cool Water. And I couldn't afford to buy the bottle of Cool Water, so I bought Aspen by Coty. And most people didn't know either difference. Of course, I didn't say I'm wearing Cool Water. I told them I'm wearing Aspen. I don't know if anybody knew it was the cheap one from Walmart or not, but it smelled good to me, and I liked it. And it even smells good to this day. I could wear that right now. Wouldn't have a problem at all. That was 14 years old, around 94, when the Arkansas Razorbacks won the national championship in basketball. Nolan Richardson, Corliss Williamson, Scotty Thurman hits the big shot over, I think it was Grant Hill, when we beat Duke in the championship game. That was a good year. I was rocking some Coty Aspen probably that night. Number 3, and I don't have a bottle, but I've got a similar bottle I can show you. But it's a 95 release. I started wearing this when it first came out. 15 and 16 years old. I know my girlfriend at the time, she bought me a bottle for Christmas. You're thinking 95. You're thinking, I think I know what he's going with here. Tommy, no. Hugo. Again, I just got my bottle reversed here, but I'll pop up the real bottle on the screen. But Hugo, the original men's release, Hugo from 95, Hugo Boss. It was an aromatic green fragrance, green apple, mint, grapefruit. It was really groundbreaking. Smelled a little similar to Tommy, kind of, but I just thought it was better, and that's what she got me. And I wore it for a while. That bottle lasted me a good while, and still pretty good to this day. All right, coming down to the final two. Number two, started wearing this around 18 years old. My wife bought it for me after we got married. I needed something to wear to church. Didn't want to wear my old cologne that my other girlfriend that I did wind up marrying got me. And I don't know if that was all the whole story about it, but it was the original Nautica. And this is the original bottle that she bought me back all them years ago. I found this in up in my closet in a box. Super happy to have the original bottle. I don't even know if the sprayer would work on this. Oh, it did, yeah. Ooh. It has turned a little bit, but I remember it. This is a nostalgic smell to me because this was right around the time, again, that I got married. Reminds me of that. I got saved and started going to church, with my wife, and we was, I was not surrendered to preach yet, but I was starting to kind of get involved and go out on visitation and picking up some kids in the neighborhood and bringing them to church and just kind of wearing this every time. This is the fragrance I started wearing when I started preaching when I was 21 years old. And I didn't have any suits. There was a mortician in town that had outgrew some, he probably had lost some weight and was getting rid of his bigger suits, and I don't know. Anyways, I bought some suits off of a mortician, and I doused myself down with Nautica and go preach, not knowing much, to some people who were very loving and forgiving for a young guy. But the number one, this is the last fragrance that I owned and wore up until I really got into the fragrance community. And so there was a 10-year period where I wasn't wearing many fragrances, maybe even 15 years. And it wasn't until I smelled a friend who had the original Acqua di Gio on that I was like, hey, what are you wearing? And then I started thinking, I used to wear fragrances all the time. I need to get some. And I got a bottle of Perfumo, and then a bottle of Sauvage, and then I bought a bottle of Tom Ford Grey Vetiver in a airport in Seoul, South Korea, and that's what kicked me off on my journey. But this is the bridge fragrance between Nautica and Acqua di Gio Perfumo. So this was the fragrance that I wore over a 10-year period. My wife bought it for me. She really liked it. I didn't love it, but she liked it, so I wore it. And again, another one you may not even know, and it is from Hollister, and it is SoCal. And SoCal is an amber, it's called an amber fougere. I don't get that. It's pineapple, rosemary, and suede leather. And so it's a leather, it's a boozy leather fragrance. And honestly, what it reminds me of is like Dolce & Gabbana the One. A little bit more milder, a little more smooth, or even Bentley for Men Intense. It's similar. It's that ambery, little boozy, leathery, spicy. It was just a real good scent. Probably, I know there wasn't a lot of folks wearing this one, and so I probably, stood out, smelled a little bit different. That's my 10 fragrances. Was wearing this probably around the age of, probably from 22 to about 35, honestly. Just being honest with you, that was my fragrance. Hush, Siri. All right, let me tag a couple of other folks. I'm going to tag a channel that I really like, and I haven't spoken with her, but I'm going to tag her, and maybe she'll take part in this video, and that's Glam Finds. She turned me on to Lattafa Ajazi, and I love it. And I bought some other Lattafa fragrances, and I really like her channel. I'm going to tag my watch guy, Teddy Baldassari, who has a fragrance channel now that's really blown up, Baldassari fragrances. And I'm going to tag Dr. Smellgood. So I'll tag those guys. Hopefully some of them will get in. But we'll also leave it open. Anybody else that wants to do it, this is kind of a fun tag. I appreciate Tyler at Simply Fragrances for tagging me in this. Check out his channel and leave me a comment. I'd like to know what you wore back in your day when you were growing up. So that's it. Like, subscribe. Till we see you down the road, we say God bless. Frag on, Frag fam.